My name is Frank Ormsby. I'm sitting here today on a little patch of ground at the junction between Lisburn Road and University Road. It's called King William Park, and it's a place that has got all kinds of historical and personal resonance as far as I'm concerned. In prehistoric times, this was probably the shoreline of the sea which covered the area that we now know as the centre of Belfast. This is probably the point where the sloblands or the mud flats began to rise up towards the Malone Ridge. Well, I came here as a student in 1966, and then I lived in Belfast from 1968. Belfast was very different indeed from the lakes and the small farms of County Fermanagh, which is where I grew up. So I always, from the start, I found Belfast different and interesting and fascinating. And I lived for 20 years in the south of the city, and I've written poems which feature botanic gardens, the Giant's Ring, for example, Windsor Park football ground. For the last 20 years, I've lived in North Belfast, so the landscape has changed to Cave Hill and North Circular Road and Antrim Road and so on. A writer who spent most of his life in Belfast was the novelist and short story writer Michael McLaverty. I've always admired his novels, but in particular his first novel, which is a short lyrical novel called Call My Brother Back. And it's about a family moving from Rathlin Island into the new housing estates that were being built in the 1920s on the outskirts of West Belfast. And in some ways it's a novel about adolescence, I suppose, but very much a novel, also an early novel, I suppose, about the divisions in Belfast society, an early Troubles novel, if you like. King William Park. The mountains must have watched it, the startled eyes of swamp life and the long-shinned estuary birds, that tidal glitter curling out to sea for the last time, abandoning its mud. Then centuries of minute adjustments, rivers changing their beds, the shifting work of sloblands under the sky, and fibrous growths toughening, holding their own. Fowlers, fishers and settlers, intricate drains, channels and cargoes, chimneys, street lamps and trams. But always the brickwork tilting, buildings on stilts, the tide swell echoes creeping out of the ground yearly to meet the rainfall and shaping themselves to crests and troughs in the tarmac, undulant cobbles.